Hello and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history podcast. This week, it's an episode I've been working on for a while. It's the Roger Casement two-part special. Roger Casement's probably the most interesting, certainly the guy I've become most obsessed with over the last while of the podcast. But it's insane that he hasn't got a film or a docu-series about him. It's only a matter of time. Who probably led the most interesting life of any of the 1916 revolutionaries? Perhaps. I don't know. Sure, listen to these two episodes and figure that out for yourself. But we had a lot of fun recording both of them. Part 2 about next week at some point. Which will bring us very close to the date of the live gig in the Wild Duck, which we keep talking about because we want you to go and enjoy yourself, for God's sake. There'll be a link to that in the description of this episode, along with all the usual links to all our stuff. And this is a long episode, so that's it. Buy tickets to the Wild Duck on the 25th of May 2023 in Dublin, and enjoy part 1 of the two-part series on Roger Casement.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish lineage to find. Joseph from Carlisle and Gavin the Dog guide you through the ways of Shite.
This is good now, the video. I read this, or parts of it.
Pull it back a little bit so it's in focus. That's it. There you go.
They're perfect. I read some of this. My friend Saif gave it to me. It's a very good book. And I went to the back and the index section
Had all
where it says Casement. Easy.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought you'd read the whole thing, and then just for shits and giggles, you read the index at the back and said,
He did it. No, I didn't read the whole thing. In fact, I lost it for about 6 months, but I found it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just in time for this.
Did you tell Saif that you'd lost it?
I can't remember. I think I did.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did, and then 2 days later I found it in my glove box.
That's how you'd find it, though. Kind of like the golf ball in the van. You just admit that you've lost it, face the music, and then it'll probably show up. But it was probably in the van since Edinburgh. A strong 7 months ago. That is, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it's done now.
We're here now. Also, that's a very big book to be...
It is a very big book.
In general, but also to be bringing to the Edinburgh Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
That you're not going to read anything.
No. But, if you're not going to read something, you may as well not read a big book. That's my logic. But this is one that's been on the cards for a while. And it's very topical now because of Easter Rising.
Okay.
Which is already done and gone.
Yeah, but that's what people wouldn't even think about the fact that it's coming up. It's kind of like your mother's birthday. You're only thinking about it after you forgot that it just happened.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I did when I went home at the weekend.
Did you forget it was Anne's birthday? Oh, you dog.
I missed it by 2 days, and she was just fine with it.
Was she? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she'd said.
Yeah. She said, don't worry about it. It's actually fine.
Yeah, it's the one time she put me on the train, sent me back to Dublin, and wasn't crying. She was like, I don't know if I'll see him again up there in the big smoke.
Yeah.
This time she was like, yeah, let us know whenever you're back. Get the fuck.
Well, that's shocking. Anne, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mammy.
Too late for you, kid.
I haven't added the Mammy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Just Ma there. I was really trying to... Yeah. I'm a child, you can't give out to me.
I'm just a pup. Rapscallion kid. Kids don't know calendars.
No.
I can only count as far as March.
Gregorian?
Yeah.
I suppose if you drop one of those, she's like, see, you do know calendars.
You do know calendars. You know all the words, it seems. I know all the dates except your mum's birthday.
What date was this lad born?
Yeah, actually, so this will be 2 parts. The whole first part's irrelevant to Easter Rising at all, but we'll get there.
Now it's going to be in the bank for next year for when people want.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, Easter Rising, it's pretty boring.
Yeah.
It's been done to death, unlike this story, which should have its own film, much like everything that we do.
Who Framed Roger Casement?
That's pretty good with Bob Hoskins. Oh, is Bob Hoskins dead?
Oh, yeah.
Dig up his bones. Get him in there. But Who Framed
Bob
Roger
Hospice?
Casement? Yeah.
If he's not dead.
If he's not dead, he's close to it. Right, well, Roger, David, Casement, born
All the testaments.
1st of September 1864.
Okay.
No, get that in your head.
1860. It's 1800s.
Yeah.
So you have to correct me when I say
very astute.
When I say 1900. And a
Yeah,
bit.
no, I won't correct you. I'll just breeze past it, and then when I'm editing, I'll be like, I should have stopped them. He's born in Doyle's Cottage in Dublin.
Okay. It was just so small at the time. There was only one family.
There was only one
Doyles.
family he was in with the Doyles. He himself is not a Doyle, but that's where he was born. But it's irrelevant because his family moved to England shortly thereafter.
Doing well for themselves.
Yeah, it's 1864. It's post-famine times. Things aren't good. It's post-famine times the Fenian Revolution is 67 maybe. I don't know. It's a bad time to be around. So they'll go to England. His mother was Anne Jepson.
Is the post-famine when people started using email?
Yeah. Very good. Post-famine, aka
I'll feel my way into this episode now and see whereabouts. How many stupid jokes can I make to derail the episode? And how can I just shut up for a couple of seconds that you talk about a very important figure in Irish history?
Yeah. We'll see. We'll feel it out. The post-famine, that was what the main side effect of the Easter Rising was, that no one got their letters.
For ages.
But Anne Jepson, she was a Catholic. And his father, also called Roger Casement, was a Protestant. So it was doomed from the start.
Mixed marriage.
Yeah. His granddad, his paternal granddad, Hugh Casement, was a Belfast shipping merchant who went broke and moved to Australia, as many a man would.
How did he get there?
Yeah, I don't know. One last job. I'll be damned if the liquidators are going to get this ship. It's very bad luck to talk about liquidators when you're on a ship. I suppose the Titanic hadn't happened yet. But yeah, it is a good move. You're in Belfast, you go broke, you move to Australia.
I was talking to a man down the pub there the other day in Loughlin, and he was saying that his family had all worked in ships, and that's where he'd started. He was like he probably went to school, and he was like the accountant, but his dad was like a big shipman. Yeah. And I was like, oh, what's his name? Harland? Wolf? And he was like, very good, very good, very good. Then just ignored me and kept talking. And then a few minutes later, he was like, no, my dad had worked for years up in Belfast in the shipyard. I was like, what? Was that Harland and Wolf?
Yeah.
Did you just... That's the time to give me that information when I make the joke, or at least smile at me.
Yeah.
It would have made me seem cool in front of my dad.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No.
I just did a tour today, and they were saying...
He'd be like, you can remember Harland and Wolf, you can't remember your own mother's birthday.
You got your head in the books, kid. Look at a calendar every once in a while. Yeah, I just did a tour there with some people, and they were saying when they were over in Ellis Island, they saw the record of a relation of theirs, and she went back and asked their father about it, and they were like, oh yeah, that's old Yankee Brennan. He went, because it saw on the records that he went out to America, and then 3 months later he came back. And they were like, yeah, he went.
So they called him Yankee.
They called him Yankee America. They called him Yankee Brennan or whatever the name was. And he was like, yeah, he spoke with an American accent for the rest of his life. Now, I don't know if that bit's true, because he clearly left because he didn't like it. But I'd say that he probably once accidentally said chips instead of crisps, and they were like, well, yeehaw, ooh-wee. Well, the Confederates have snuck into my parlor again.
It's a tough one there. There's too many things to go with for a nickname. Because you could call him Doodle.
Yeah.
You could call him Dan.
Yeah.
For Dandy.
Yep.
You've got three. There's three.
Yeah.
There's three.
Yeah.
Yankee.
You called him Boomerang, but that went the wrong way. Boomeranky, yeah, whatever. Anyway.
You call him Prodigal.
Return of the Prodigal Son. So yeah, that was his grandfather. His dad, Captain Roger Casement, was a captain in the British Army. He was stationed in India at some point. He was fighting in the Afghan War of 1842, but he left during the Springtime of Nations, the revolutions across Europe in 1848. He heard about the revolution in Hungary, and he was like, well, fuck this for a game of soldiers. He left Afghanistan and went to Hungary to join
a different game of soldiers.
For a different game of soldiers, but by the time he got there, it was over. So... yeah.
Oh, shucks. Oh, what if I missed it?
Fiddledy.
No.
Crumbs.
I'm so sorry, Anne.
Yeah.
I'll get it right the next time.
So he ran away from one war to go fight another war that he thought was more just, maybe. but he missed both of them, which is probably for the best. So while all that's happening, while he's running across from Afghanistan to Budapest, Roger Casement, our boy, is back in England. And there's a rumour that his mother baptised him secretly in Wales at the time.
Oh, Catholic job.
Yeah, now I don't think there's any proof to that. That's the sort of rumour that came out after he became a big national figure. And then they were like, I heard, there's no record of it at all, but I heard that his mother baptised him. So he's actually a Catholic, and therefore good. There's this. I think the story came around that he was baptized, but the story, there's inconsistencies in it, as you would expect from a made-up story.
But then tell me, what's right? Wolf Tone, famous Protestant.
Yeah,
everyone loved him. Mm-hmm. Surely that would have been the kicking through the door, beating it down, and been like, "Hey, do you know what? Some of these Catholics are all right."
But it's easier if you're Catholic. You know?
Yeah, but all right, fair enough. Just saying,
no.
I'm just.
It doesn't make any sense.
You can disagree if you want. I'm just saying some Protestants are okay.
Yeah. I know what you mean, and Daniel O'Connell, they're all Protestants. Sure, they're all Protestants. Protestants when anyone's doing anything. That's not true. I take that back. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but it does feed into the nationalist mythology of him later on that he was a secret Catholic. It's just convenient if he is, but also a lie, probably. Anyway, she died when he was 9. So
he wouldn't even know unless you told him.
He wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
That's true, actually. Yeah. Well, maybe as a 9-year-old you'd remember. But the father moved them all back to England, back to his home in the Glens of Antrim. He's going back to the old country. There's a Casement Street in Ballymena. It's named after either the dad or probably the granddad is more likely, the ship merchant, as opposed to the man that abandoned the British Army. Which I don't know what the punishment for that is. I don't know. Maybe having to run to Budapest was punishment enough. But he died also anyway, so it doesn't matter. He died when he was 13. So Roger and his 2 siblings were raised in Antrim by their uncle. So he's already moved around a good bit as a kid. He's Dublin to England, moves around England a little bit, Antrim, and then in with the uncle. And he's only 13 at this point. But he's got a sense of burgeoning Irish nationalism. Mm-hmm. Or maybe he doesn't, and it's easy to say. I mean, I don't know.
Hindsight, yeah.
Yeah, he's apparently a big fan of Parnell, Charles Stewart Parnell, but he kind of drops out of politics. But he's a kid. He follows him and he likes him, and he drops out of politics after he gets embroiled in that big scandal where he banged that guy's wife. He kind of gets disillusioned as a child. But he's a big interest in Irish mythology. No one's banging anyone's wife in that. It's much easier to follow. So here's the first big question, possibly the first of one. Is Casement handsome? Now, I have tried this several times. I did a version of this story for a live gig in Chennai by myself, where I stood up for 20 minutes and just ranted about it. We did a live version of this in Belfast
with Darren Matthews.
I've
since just hold my hands up, forgotten 99% of it.
Oh, that's good. That makes it easier. But each of those times and other times I've tried to push this, that he's...
I remember the result of your live poll.
I've been wrong every time.
That the whole place shut you down.
The whole place, not only everyone I've talked to, but everyone from the history as well. Everyone that meets him.
You've seen photos of him.
Yeah, I've seen photos
That's
of him.
the biggest
That's
issue with
my
your...
thing.
Yeah.
You at home, go look him up now and tell me... I'm not saying he's ugly. Listen, no one's saying that. I'm just saying that every account that I read of someone meeting them, like... If the account is 50 lines long, 48 of those lines are about how handsome he is. I'm just saying he's not that handsome.
People used to write a lot more like setup back then,
but it's insane. This book.
That's why Sir Tom Bombadil isn't in Lord of the Rings,
because he's not handsome.
Yeah, nowadays Casement would still be referenced as handsome.
Yeah, but I mean, half of this book is just how good he looks. If you look at the index, it's just like here's the points where they mention his dark hair, curly beard, how striking and tall he was.
How many times have you heard Holly Cairns' name come up in conversation with it not followed or preceded by she's alright looking?
She's pretty good.
It's still a fairly important thing. That it's just like, if you're good looking and good at something, people are like, Jesus, but that's where do you give me some of the good stuff?
Yeah, but it's how much detail they go into it. Especially because later on, like, he's meeting people and they're talking about important things and be like, I first met him and I was taken in by his handsome curly beard, his sparkling eyes, his tall demeanor. He had the chest of a man who lived in the vastness, open plains of Africa. That's Stephen Gwynn, the Irish writer, said that he was one of the finest looking creatures I had ever seen. Don't call people
still at a time
creatures.
referring to Irish people as creatures.
Yeah.
I like it. Which is, in fairness, that is it's 1860s, but by now it's like 1880s. Or
it's not like
Irish people didn't look like that. They had one tooth between them. There'd be one person in the town. He'd open up the tins. That's his job.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone else walking around toothless, hands knuckle deep in mud. Right. This man, our shining light. He's probably the Pierce Brosnan of the. Pierce Brosnan was the Irish. He was the equivalent of him in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Just reminding myself, this is the 1880s.
It is.
That's what he is. He's James Bond.
It's just the amount of detail that people go in about how handsome he is.
The amount of detail
shocking.
you've gone in over the last 2 months about how he's not that handsome.
Yeah. All right. I'm just protesting too much. Okay. Listen, we'll put that to bed for now. I'm going to bring it up again in about 2 seconds. So, young Casement, whatever he looked like, he heads off for adventure at the age of
Good
19.
looking man.
It's 1883. He's 19. Where does a man go for adventure in those days? He's heading off to Africa. He travels to Congo. I'm probably going to say the Congo a few times by accident.
It's okay.
And I don't know. Is that the Ukraine situation? I think.
They're very different situations, I think.
Is it? Yeah, I know you shouldn't say
it's not history repeating itself. There are two different kind of conflicts.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Is it that sort of thing here? Congo, anyway. So he goes out there aboard an Elder Dempster ship. That'll come important later on, or maybe it won't. He worked as a purser. So he came back the following year then and stayed this time for a while, working for the Stanford Exploring Expedition at the age of 20.
What's a purser? Just a fancy name for accountant?
Yeah, I guess. Or he just held the purse. Coin man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what spending could be happening on a boat. Probably a lot, actually, as I say that. Men will get bored. They'll probably just be buying stuff.
With what, though?
The money, and he keeps track of it.
Okay.
They buy stuff online, like the sales that were online. They bought it in the sales. Yep. That's where the phrase comes from. So he's helping, when he gets out to Congo, he's helping with the surveys there, he's helping build roads. But unlike a lot of the other white Europeans who go out there, he immerses himself in the culture, he learns about the local people. Lads called him Monafumu Casement, son of a king.
Monafumu.
Casement claimed that he was the first white man to swim across the crocodile-infested Inkisi River.
Are you sure they didn't get it wrong, or they were calling him a son of a something else?
Yeah, easily. Monafumu could have been motherfucker, I don't know. But no, he's got a cool nickname. He's swimming across crocodile rivers. He worked for a Baptist missionary there for a while and was noted as being too generous to the natives. They said he was too ready to give away and that he'd never make a good trader.
That's your classic missionary.
Yeah, he's too nice.
Too nice.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's about Jesus, but also it's about the bottom line.
Treat him mean, keep him keen.
Yeah. Don't give them too good a deal.
Yeah, they'll be expecting that now forever.
Yeah. If you just give stuff away to them, they'll never learn. And we'll never make money. So that was him. That's like his early days there. But he starts traveling further up the Congo River and he comes across things that make him rethink this whole colonial business.
Okay.
So he's fairly wide-eyed. He's young and he's going over and he believes in the idea of the great European powers bringing, civilization, roads and money and whatever to all the world and Christ. But then he starts to see some stuff. So we'll jump around a bit in time. 1884. Actually, it's bang on time.
Yeah, he's 20 now. He was 19 in the last paragraph.
Yeah. The Berlin Conference of 1884. Germany had just been made into a country in 1871 and everyone was very excited. Everyone who spoke German was very excited. Everyone else, a little bit worried. They wanted in on the scramble for Africa, which isn't some kind of delicious egg dish. It's actually quite a dark piece of human history and you shouldn't be making cracking jokes
I can't get my brain now over just a modern day Berlin conference. Just 200 people in a club. Like, we'll all change the world.
Let's split up Africa. So they want to get in on this Africa land grab, which was around about the same time that France and the UK decided is actually not okay. We can't just be going around willy-nilly grabbing stuff because we own most of it. So let's all get together and carve it up so that Germany doesn't go too nuts. So they divide Africa between them, which obviously takes a long time. They take into account local cultures, natural land barriers like rivers and mountains and stuff, like feuding tribes, historical attachments to different areas. They take all that into consideration when they're putting it up. And then it hits about 4:00 on a Friday.
They get a ruler.
And they're like, that's a fucking job. Job's a good one.
Coincidentally, all of those things would just naturally
it falls into straight lines. So it's actually pretty handy. And job's done. So carve the whole thing up. But just before they leave, a young man called Leopold II of Belgium, he comes up with a pretty crazy idea. What if in all of this land grabbing there was a place in Africa that was just free for trade for all? It's kind of like a prototype of the EU. Everyone can trade in here. It's welcome into all nations. It'll be called the Congo. And everyone says, that's a pretty good idea.
I was going to say Wakanda.
No, it is like Wakanda. It's the Wakanda of its day. And he says it'll be a free trade area. And everyone says, yeah, sounds all right. And he says, and what if I owned it? And then they said, fine. So
it's your idea?
You run with it. Now, it's an anomaly in that it's not owned by Belgium. It's owned by him personally.
Oh,
yeah.
No, that's...
Yeah. So he convinces all the world powers to put together... Yeah, it's an experiment, basically, of a free trade zone in the middle of Africa. And it's his personal property. Yeah,
but if it goes bad, I'm sure he would have gotten all of the abuse as well. Thankfully, it worked out perfectly.
It does, yeah. I mean, the fact that he was cousins with everybody in the room probably helped as well. But anyway, he gets what he wants. And they set up Congo as a free trade zone. So Leopold uses a man called Henry Morton Stanley to help map out and lay claim to the Congo. So he gets all this done before the conference. Stanley was a famous adventurer of the day and a massive piece of shit. We talked about this. Do you remember that line, Dr. Livingston, I presume?
No, we've been doing this podcast for 4 years.
You don't remember?
It's Jason.
Yeah. Okay. It was a pretty famous line at the time. Dr. Livingston, I presume. It's pretty funny. In 1869, Stanley went out to find Dr. Henry Livingston, who was another famous explorer.
I do know this now.
Yeah, he'd been missing for years, and it was kind of adventurers wanted to go off and find him, basically. So Livingston goes off. He goes off to find the source of the Nile, which everyone's obsessed with, but he gets lost. And Stanley goes off to find him, and he spends ages looking through. He has a massive expedition trying to find the guy, and eventually he comes across like the only old white British man in all of Africa, and he's like, "Is that you, man, Livingston?
How'd you know?
How'd you know?" Which is pretty funny, I guess, for the time. But he is also a massive piece of shit. Anyway, he found him, so he becomes an even bigger celebrity. He's a weird guy. I thought he had some Irish connection. I wanted to do him as a Patreon thing, but then I don't know where I got that from. I think he's Welsh. He went by Henry Morton Stanley, but that wasn't his name. He was a Welsh orphan who went to America and started working for a guy called Stanley, and he just took his name. I was like, yeah, it's better than mine.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. But I need a lot of issues with women and anyone who wasn't white and Welsh or English.
Fair enough.
So, a lot of the Congo stuff that I'll be quoting here comes from King Leopold's Ghost by Adam Hochschild. It's this book here. It begins with the story of Edmund Dene Morel, which I probably should have looked up how to pronounce that because he's pretty cool. But he goes by E.D. Morel. He's a
EDM?
Yeah.
E.D. like this, the initials, not like a name, like Falco.
No, yeah, his name was Edmund Dene. I don't know how to pronounce the second name, Dene, because everyone just called him E.D. Morel. Probably because no one else knew how to pronounce it either. But he's a French-born British man working for a Liverpool-based ship line called Elder Dempster. which is the same one that he got out that time as a purser. It had a monopoly on the trade to the Congo. So because he speaks French, El de Dempster send him out to Belgium, send him out to Brussels, or to Antwerp, I think, actually, every couple of weeks to just keep an eye on the trade. Because it's supposed to be a free trade zone, which means stuff is coming from Congo by ships, and we're trading back and forth with Europe. But after a while, and now, in fairness to him, Edie Morel, very cool guy, humanitarian, philanthropist, does a lot of good work. It does take him quite a number of years, I think, to notice. It was around 1897. He cops on, well, hold on a minute. All of these ships come back from the Congo full of rubber and other raw materials. And then all the ships that go out there are only full of bullets and men with guns to shoot the bullets. What are we trading here exactly?
Oh,
he starts to ask some big questions.
I was sending them free ships. Is it on me that they filled them up with rubber and sent them right back to me?
He just kept bouncing off the rubber and coming back. It was gonna happen to anyone. He needed to send it some glue. But so his job is to come down and like he's doing the logs for this for years. And he's like, well, wait a minute, we've never once sent them like money or food or anything useful. It's just guns. So he starts doing a little bit of digging back in Europe. Because the only explanation is forced labor, slavery. So he starts looking into the paperwork side of things in Europe. But back in the 1880s, Casement got to join his hero, Mr. Stanley, when he was on his Emin Pasha relief expedition. So he joined up with him for about a week. And again, like Stanley's this huge, celebrated English figure. He's whipping out crackers like Dr. Livingston, I presume. That, no reaction. Back in like, Victoria in England, they fucking love that shit.
It's good.
They would have been saying that stuff up and down the pubs.
Yeah, it's good prose.
The right knee slapper. Probably mumbling it to himself every day for months. Just this is going to be stormer. So he's delighted to meet up with him. Probably to the extent that he's like, do I say the Dr. Stanley? I presume? Oh no, fuck. Gets that all the time. Come on, fucking get it together, Casement.
He turns around, all the lads with him aren't paying attention.
Yeah,
they're all just looking in the trees. Did you hear what
I got him? It's the fuck.
Oh, I'll say it again. I'll just hold on.
Dr. Stanley, I presume. You heard me the first time. So he's excited to get to use his line and whatever and hang out with the guy. But after a week of hanging out with him, he just loved killing lads, or certainly didn't care if they lived or died. But what turned Casement off most was that he saw...
With guns or knives?
Either or.
Is that what a Stanley blade is?
Yeah, exactly. But Casement saw him cut his dog's tail off, cook it, and then feed it to the dog. And Casement, he likes dogs, so he doesn't think this is good.
Okay, so Casement's like me.
Yeah.
And Stanley's like you.
No. I'd never cut a dog's tail off and feed it to the dog.
But you don't like dogs.
I do like dogs.
You don't like dogs.
I think that's a bad thing to do to dogs.
You don't, but you wouldn't want them. That's a bad thing to do to them, but you also wouldn't want them around you ever.
But you're like Casement in that, now in fairness, I left it out. But
gorgeous. No. Very nice to animals.
The man killed like probably tens of Africans. And everyone's like, Jesus, that's shocking. And he cut off a dog's tail and fed it to the dog. He's like, that man needs to be hung, drawn and quartered. Feed him to the dog. Feed him to the fucking dog. I don't care what happened before this. There's a dog in danger now. But I'm just as bad because I forgot to write down about the other people. I just wrote the dog thing because it is pretty shocking. It's a dog.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he starts to think maybe all these lads are cracked.
It's the early signs of a serial killer. Let's trace it back. What else has he been doing? Oh, well, there's a thing right before that.
It's actually early signs, and also you don't hear that much really. Like with the Ed Kempers, they do also continue to torture small animals. But he starts to think maybe like these lads are cracked. In 1887, he's traveling on a steamboat with a man called Guillermo van Kerkovan, and he listened to him brag about how he paid his black soldiers 5 brass rods per human head that they brought him during any military outing. He's like, it's gas crack. I'm just paying these lads to bring me back heads. Now, that might sound familiar, that story, if you'd read that graphic novel that you're so proud of. Because in 1890, Casement met Polish novelist Joseph Conrad out in Congo. He would go on to write one of the biggest books of its day, The Heart of Darkness, which is partly inspired by Casement and his stories. Now, I'm getting up on my high horse about I haven't read it either. I don't know what it is. But
I bought it for you.
You did. But that guy, Guillermo van Kerkhoven, I don't know, I read a lot of different takes about it, which I don't know who's right because I haven't read the thing, but the main character, or one of the main villain or antagonists in it, is called Kirk.
Martin Sheen.
Yeah, because it also goes on to inspire Coppola's Apocalypse Now.
Mm-hmm.
But
and the documentary about it, it's called Heart of Darkness.
It's full circle. Yeah. But a lot of this, so I think that story appears in it, the one with the Kirk chopping off human heads. Mm-hmm. But basically, yeah, Conrad writes the story, becomes a very famous novel later on, and I've read too many. I don't know. Everyone says that every character is inspired by Casement or isn't inspired by Casement, so I don't know what's true. But he definitely had like some influence on it.
For the sake of this one, we say every character.
I'd say every character.
Yeah, every character. Yeah. Especially Dennis Hopper, which is that great line. Is that in Heart of Darkness, or is that some even behind the scenes footage of that, where Hopper's just stoned and Coppola's trying to get him to read his lines? He's like, what? I don't need the lines. I'm just going to forget them anyway. We're going to loose around. So you need to learn the lines so you can forget them. Which is very true. You need to know it inside out before you can do something else. But so yeah, him and Conrad lived together for about 10 days, with Conrad writing, "Made the acquaintance of Mr. Roger Casement, which I should consider as a great pleasure under any circumstances. He's so handsome." Mm-hmm. No, I added that last bit in, but I'm sure he did say that in the longer version of this that I left out. But yeah, they're mates. I think later on in life he distanced themselves from him. I don't know. We'll get into that bit maybe in part 2. But at the time, they find themselves kind of allies in that they both come to the Congo with ideas of colonial, like, they believe the idea of like colonization of Africa would be a good thing for Africans, and like building roads, bringing Christ, all that sort of stuff. But when they got there, they just found themselves surrounded by Europeans who just wanted to make money off rubber and ivory trades, and were, bastards. It starts to sound like Vietnam.
Yeah.
The Americans are going to go over, we're going to make it good, we're going to bring in McDonald's, we're going to civilize the place a whole little bit, and then it is just European students. Yeah. You go there, it's just European and Australian students.
Exactly. So they're a bit disheartened, but they find, they're like-minded spirits. So the Congo is rich in rubber, which was a big thing at the time because of wheels and cars. Do you ever see untreated rubber is like white? You ever see that? Yeah. That's why the Michelin Man is white. Because he's made of tires, Michelin tires, and they're white. But anyway, they collect the trees. But it's rich in rubber and ivory, and that's what Leopold wanted in the first place. That was his whole scheme. Set up this free trade zone, but basically just let him have control. Because Congo is a huge area in the middle of Africa. And Leopold was, I don't think it's an understatement to say, one of the worst men of the 20th century. If World War II hadn't happened, which I said it shouldn't, I just want to get that in the record, he probably would have been more remembered as a massive bastard.
The other day you were saying something about something in World War II that didn't happen. What was...
Yeah, I just delete that. But yeah, every horror you think about to do with like colonization in Africa comes from him. It's all the stereotypes. He installed a system where people were punished by mutilation if they didn't collect enough rubber. He held family members hostage to force the men of the village to collect more rubber. He basically just used violence and brutality to bring slavery back to the region. Now, not him personally, but his system, like 100% from his directive. He actually never set foot in the place, even though he owned it. He never visited.
Absentee landlord,
which is always topical.
Well, as we know in this country, is the worst thing you can be.
Yeah, that's true. But back in 1892, JC, it was at this point in the
Jesus Christ.
That was the way I realized that it was his initials. Yeah, so JC, so he's his early days in the Congo. In Congo, he's going around, he's working for missionaries, he's working as whatever. He's going around building roads and doing bits. He starts to get disillusioned with what he's seeing there, so he joins the British colonial administration and he's working in modern day Nigeria. So he's working for the consulate. And there's some difference between like embassies and consulates that I didn't bother going into. But he's like an attaché for some sort.
You have to catch yourself because you said the council there.
Yeah, he basically works for the council.
Like, this is why nothing's getting done.
He's a pothole man out there. Essentially, it seems like he kind of is. But so he starts to get a bit more lippy, I suppose. In 1894, he writes a letter of protest to the Aborigines Protection Society over the hanging of 27 African soldiers and their wives by Germans in the German colony in Cameroon. So yeah, the Aborigines Protection Society is like it's like a Quaker / I think it was born out of the abolitionist movement against slavery, and the Quakers, same bunch as always, but it was kind of the forerunner of like Amnesty International. It was a 1800s group basically set up to be like, what if we stopped killing all the people that are there in the places where we go? And it was not very popular, but he wrote to them saying, I trust you may do something to raise a protesting voice in England against the atrocious conduct of the Germans. Although the men were their soldiers, we all on earth have a commission and a right to defend the weak against the strong and to protest against brutality in any shape or form. And they were like, you're fucking bent, mate. Nah, what? Oh, it's the Germans that did it. Actually, you've got a good point. The Hun have done it again. They've gone too far. But he's starting to voices. He kind of always sticks out as being different a little bit, but he's starting to get a bit more confident. But so he bounces around a few posts in Africa. He does some administration work around the Boer War down in South Africa. But he gets assigned then to set up the first British consul post in Congo. On his way to his new position, he gets invited for lunch with King Leopold himself at the Royal Palace in Brussels. So he drops in and he's eating with Leopold and his estranged wife, the Queen, and their daughter, Princess Clementine, and then Prince Victor Napoleon of France. Okay. Of those Napoleons.
Yeah.
So he's just hanging around.
Like
was 18?
Does he have a number on it there, or is he like a cousin or an uncle or something?
He must be maybe great. Yeah, Napoleon the Second. It's probably Napoleon the Third. But anyway, he's just some guy.
No, because he popped up in a story the other week for us.
Yeah.
I can't remember now. We've done too much recently.
Well, Napoleon the First would have been around.
Oh, it was in the Francis Tumblety episode.
Yeah, but this would be around that time, 1890s.
Oh, I suppose you're right. Yeah. Let's say it was him.
Yeah, Napoleon the First gets defeated around 1850.
Let's say it was Victor Frankenstein.
It was Victor Frankenstein. But this is, I don't know why I wrote this in, but it's just kind of funny. I don't know. It's just like a classic, he is in love with Clementine. Clementine's in love with Napoleon, but the father won't let them marry because he needs France on side for what he's doing in Africa. So he just has him hanging around as a court man.
Courting her.
Courting her, yeah. They do get married after Leopold dies.
You can't marry him. I've got this beautiful man called Roger Casement I'm setting you up with.
I can't see any issues with this. So Leopold, so he's sitting there, he gets invited in before he goes out to open this embassy, basically. Or it's not really an embassy, but whatever. A consulate post. And Leopold brings him in, he's like telling them all about the good work they're doing over there and all the nice roads they're building. And he does kind of get ahead of it by saying it was impossible to always I don't know why he'd sound like that. What does a Belgian sound like in the 1800s? No. It is impossible to always have the best men in Africa, and indeed the African climate seems to frequently cause deterioration of the character.
You started French and then you went South African and you pulled it back a little at the end.
I did. I heard it in my head thanks to these headphones. But so he's basically saying there that like, yeah, sometimes, you know, we're doing good work out there and maybe sometimes once in a blue moon something goes wrong. It's too hot out there. The men can't deal with the heat. Also, I can't send my best men to Africa. They're here doing nothing.
You got to crack a few eggs to make an omelette.
That's why they call it the scramble for Africa.
Yeah.
But but he wanted Casement. So he's talking to him and he says if you do notice
this place is full of poachers.
Yeah, okay.
You'll fry for this, Leopold.
Yep. But yeah, so he tells Casement that if you do see anything out of the ordinary, he's like, I want you to bring it to me first. which is the classic film thing of like when you
trust that man.
You trust that man, and then you uncover some dirt and you bring it to like your mentor figure, and they're like, "Oh, this is terrible. Does anyone else know about this?" You're like, "Oh no, I brought it to you first." Like, good.
Yeah. Why are you in the shadows? No reason. I've never seen you wear a cloak before.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Why are you looking out the window with your back to me? You thought it was a gun. So it's that. Yeah, you know, if you do find out in the ordinary, just send it to me first, and I'll definitely take care of you. I mean, whatever. So he's stationed in the Congo. He's still in love with Africa, but at this point he's also being worn down with the day-to-day of the job. He's way out in the middle of nowhere in a rundown building, and he has to look after every complaint from every white man in the region. So
It's hot.
It's hot.
It's hot.
He's not.
It's
built
really
for it.
hot.
Yeah.
What are the rest of the complaints?
It's too fucking hot. But as well as all the complaints about it being hot and how you can't get, you know, Dave Comedy Gold, there's no reception for it there. He is also unable to do anything about the atrocities that he sees.
I can't see Only Fools and Horses. That show hasn't even been invented yet. Yeah, that's another problem.
I've been meaning to say that. But yeah, so as well as all the day-to-day complaints, he also can't do anything on an official basis about all the atrocities he sees. Mm-hmm. That's not his job. There's no system set up in place for that sort of thing. That's not what he's there for. So yeah, he's just kind of stuck. But he gets a reputation as being an oddball for all the other Europeans in Congo. On his first official visit to Leopoldville, which is a bad name, although it was still Leopoldville in that story about the Balubas.
Yeah.
Or maybe
but was there another name on it as well?
Maybe. But that was like the 60s. But anyway, yeah, so he's supposed to, his first official visit out to Leopoldville, he doesn't get the train because he says the fares are too expensive. So he walks 200 miles.
God, he's Irish.
He's very Irish. Now, I assume it was because it's too expensive for the common man, or maybe he is just like, just fucking pocket the money. I'll just walk. That's the famous, that's why one of Louth's 3 times that they won the All-Ireland football final, one of them was against Kerry, and the trains were too expensive, so the Kerry team didn't go up.
Default.
It's one of the few default results in the history of the game. But so when he eventually does get the train,
I did that all over Asia, where I was like, what is it? It's an hour and a half walk or a 10-cent tuk-tuk.
Yeah.
Those prices, not for me.
Don't try and rip me off with your European prices.
I did that for about
walking's free, kid.
I did that for about 4 months, and then I blew out both of my Achilles.
Yeah, that makes sense. But well, he eventually does. You know, he starts getting the train. But when he does, he only rides in second class, which is also what you did whenever you got the trains.
It's also the furthest graduation you ever got from school.
Oh,
there's better ways to phrase that. Yeah, I got excited
it there.
And I was like,
yeah. But yeah, so all the other European attachés or whatever are like, why is he riding in coach?
You just say attaché just to double down on me being an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. That's a word that I kind of know the meaning of. I think it's just French for attachment.
Attaché. I don't care what kind of facial hair you can grow, man.
But yeah, so he's always riding in coach, and he's always riding around with a giant bulldog called John.
Okay.
Yeah.
British.
Yeah, okay. I suppose so. Or French.
Oh, they're okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
But anyway, that's his whole thing. He loves his dog.
Or it was just some sort of a mythical creature, like a minotaur. Half bull, half dog.
That dog would not survive well in the heat.
No.
God.
They have they struggle.
They don't survive well anywhere.
Yeah.
Sound
like you sleeping.
That's true. But another, I suppose, it was a good. The dogs we have now have another 120 years of inbreeding at them. You know what I mean? And back then, he probably less likely to die in its own snores. So he loves traveling around with his giant jawed bulldog called John. But he was seen as soft by his fellow white men because he did things like cry over dead dogs. Which is pretty fucking or when he saw locals getting beaten up and killed, he was sad, which they thought was bad.
That's bad. It's weak man.
He once saw an officer order a man flogged so badly that he was cut to pieces. And Casement had the man carried in his hammock over 50 miles to be seen by a doctor, and then he just got laughed at because he was so concerned. Now,
did the man live?
No.
Ooh.
But maybe he would have lived if he had got the train instead of walking.
No, this man's life is paramount importance. Like, didn't get the train. Bullshit.
Can I put him in his luggage? No. Thank you very much.
27 quid Carlow to Dublin. Fuck off.
Fuck off.
It's gotten cheaper now, though. For 18 quid. That's out. Even I'd say Casement.
Yeah.
He'd pay for that.
No problem with that.
You're in Road Aaron. You've made some changes when everyone gave out to you.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Mm-hmm.
It's not said enough on this podcast.
No, it's not. They're doing a pretty good job. Also, Casement's a very cool guy, and I need to put in one joke per paragraph, or else we lose our funding. From Dave. So yeah, as I was saying, there's no official channels for his complaints. He's a man out of place. He sees a lot of atrocities, but he doesn't really know. Well, he's writing all these letters back to the British consulate, basically talking about the stuff he's seen. But they're like, stick to the script, mate. We don't give a shit. Until in May of 1903, E.D. Morel, remember that guy? Mm-hmm. He's been doing his paperwork back in England for about 6 years now, and he starts championing the Congo protest resolution and gets it passed through Parliament in 1903. So now the Foreign Office, they send a message down to Casement ordering him to go into the interior as soon as possible and send reports back. So in fairness, I think they had also agreed to send him in the year before, but he'd been on leave. He'd gone back to England or Ireland. But now this time there's political will. It's everyone's talking about it in Parliament, and like Morel has pushed this thing through. He's gathered a load of paperwork based on the discrepancies with the trades and all that sort of stuff, and now they want a man on the inside to look into it. And that man is Casement, the very man who's been complaining about this shit for years.
Mm-hmm.
So
plus your man's living up to his name. A little bit of nominative determinism.
Yeah, E.D. Morel.
Yeah,
that is what I think where I was going there, where he works for the ship company called E.D. and he is E.D. Morel. I don't know.
Something.
There's a lot of things in this story. There's like, if you read this in a novel, you'd be like, this is stupid and doesn't make any sense. Which is why I like non-fiction so much, because it's a great story, but it just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, well, like there's got great lines like this. So he's heading off into deeper Congo, but before he goes,
Dr. Livingston, I assume.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. He writes a letter to his friend, quoting an African proverb.
What if he'd just been saying that to every person he'd met?
Dr. Livingston? Nope. 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 But yeah, so he says he's quoting an African proverb.
You a sardine?
I know in last week's episode, or some episode we've done out of sequence now, we were talking about how Albert Einstein is one of the most misquoted men on the internet. I think second after Albert Einstein is just an African proverb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, everything.
I thought you were going to say Stuart Lee.
Stuart Lee, and then an African proverb. Like, if it just, why can't you just say something that sounds good? Why do you have to be like, oh, it's an old African proverb? Then you put a picture of the Serengeti behind it. But here's an African proverb, apparently. He wrote, "A man doesn't go among thorns unless a snake is after him, or he is after a snake. And I am after a snake. And please God, I'll scotch it."
Nice. You delivered that like your man who did the Michael Hang Up Your Brightest Colours.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you the same tone or delivery.
Yeah, his name's at the
by
bottom.
God.
He was a Protestant. But the first half of that's pretty cool. A man does not go among thorns unless a snake is after him, or he is after a snake. And the second bit is like, and by God, I'll scotch him. Yeah. I had to look up what that means.
That is not an
That's
African.
not cool.
Yeah. It just makes me think that the proverbs at the time, people,
Yeah.
there were just proverbs, and then people were like, where do we allocate this to? They're like, snakes?
Snakes? Yeah, that sounds out. Just make that an African one. So, in order to avoid the local authorities, he doesn't use the public transport to get up into deeper Congo.
Yeah, that's why he's not using public transport.
Yeah, once again, he's like, yeah, it's too expensive for me. I'm just going to rent my own boat. So he goes up the Congo River for 3.5 months with his bulldog John and a chef by the name of Hairy Bill.
Hairy Bill?
Yeah. Dotto.
I assume. Either a completely hairless or very hairy.
Very hairy. So he went everywhere he could go and talked to everyone he could talk to. He met other Europeans along the way and convinced them to help him out in his report. So by the end of it, he had like several missionaries and even the Italian consulate like corroborating his findings. Anytime you meet them, and like various ship captains, they'd be like, yeah, you know what, now that you mention it, it's pretty fucked up here. So yeah, all right. And then they, give him some reports and will corroborate his stuff later on. But in his diaries, he detailed what he saw over that summer of 1903. Men harvesting rubber under armed sentries. Women and children held captive while their husbands and fathers collected rubber. People with hands mutilated. People flogged for being late with rubber baskets. The rubber markets where the rubber was meant to be traded freely. Like, the whole point of this was basically just a sham, and it was just loads of men standing around with guns. He detailed it all in all the reports. He counted the number of locals held hostage. He interviewed victims and inspected their wounds. He interviewed the mercenaries that worked there. He was familiar with the territory because of his years previously. So he'd been there for, I don't know, over a decade. And he'd been in around this area before. So he kept comparing. He had a rough idea of like the population sizes from what it used to be, and he's comparing it to what it is now, and like everything's decimated. He just talks about all these villages and towns he had been in under his previous job, and now there's like fuck all men left. So in his own words, he changed from being a diplomat to an investigative crime journalist. So he's basically just making a job for himself as he goes into Congo.
He's one step there away from calling himself a gonzo journalist.
Yeah.
It's just Casement stood around. Do you think it's okay to murder all of these innocent people?
Yeah, he's doing gotcha journalism stuff. But so all the time he's sending reports back to the Foreign Office. So he's condemning not only particular situations and individuals, but also the whole goddamn system, which is very unconsulate-like.
Okay.
You can get away with maybe saying one or two people are out of order, or maybe like this practice is not great. But he's like, the whole thing's rotten from the core. What Leopold is doing is fucked. So rumours of the report starts getting out to the likes of E.D. Marl and Leopold himself, which this bit doesn't really make sense in that they know, so it's past Parliament, so Leopold knows he's out there doing this investigation. And the reports are coming back. They're not being fully released because it's been built up to like a big, one big report. But bits of it are getting out, or at least the idea that it's very damning is getting out. It'd be very easy just to have him killed. Like all he's meeting is him and a dog and a man called Harry Bill. And he's spending his whole day meeting armed mercenaries and sentries who are there just killing people like those men. Their jobs are on the line, first of all, and their good name if this stuff gets out. And he's just on his own walking around Congo, surrounded by men with guns that he is going to try and destroy. Yeah,
but then you'd look so guilty.
Yeah, I don't think any government body has ever executed an investigative journalist to any success before. Well, certainly not back in the 1890s or 2 years ago in Saudi Arabia.
Well, say if I was Leopold's enemy, I'd have him killed, because then he'd look like a bad guy.
Oh, that's pretty true.
Much like that Saudi Arabian journalist.
Yeah, he killed himself, chopped himself up into bits just to frame the Saudis. Has he no shame?
He found with his head cut off. Worst case of suicide the cops had ever seen.
Yeah, but well, actually, there's a line that echoes what you said in a little bit, but. So at the end of 1903, he returns to Europe with his notes and gets to work. He compiles all his information in what would become known as the Casement Report in 1904, which he brings to the British Foreign Office. So his diaries are also available from the time, but they're like full of emotion when he writes them, because he's, seeing horrible things. But he writes the report in a style that we listen to. It's full of citations, laws. He's very objective about the witnesses he interviews, like how reliable they are. He corroborates as much stuff as he can. He delivers a long, detailed eyewitness report to the Crown that exposes abuses, the enslavement, mutilation and torture of natives of the rubber plantations. So he talked about how soldiers demanded a hand returned for every bullet shot. So this incentivized the system. Basically, anytime a bullet was shot, you need to prove that you didn't waste it. You had to bring back a hand. But then that incentivized a situation where you would just get hands to bring back because it was easier.
So you'd just be taking hands off.
Yeah. So basically, you should never have an economy where it's run on hands.
No.
But this is something that like Leopold had bred. So he's telling, so that's like common enough. That's very common practice there. But he gets a report from one villager that the white men had goaded their soldiers into cutting off the dicks of the men and bringing them back to prove that they were killing men, not just shooting women. So from his telling of it, they were like, these hands are women's hands. You're only shooting women. So then they started bringing back penises to prove that they had been killing the men. So they're like, oh, you got us there.
The size of these clitorises.
Yeah, so it turned out, the British office start to read this document of dick mutilations, and they think, this might be a little bit too... We were looking for a little bit of flavour of like, oh, he's putting his finger on the till, tipping the weighing scales or whatever. This is a bit heavy.
Yeah.
So...
Wait, so it's just because... So every bullet used...
Yeah.
So they just want... So every person shot.
Yeah.
So it's not even like a firing squad. It's just one person, like, very close up.
Yeah.
Like they're cattle.
I think...
And then you kill them, and then you either cut their hand off, or... But it was all right. So then, back in Britain, they were thinking they didn't like the fact that they thought they were just killing women. But
this is so the Belgians, the soldiers, I guess, to incentivize not wasting ammunition. I don't know if they were hiring out like African soldiers, but they were saying basically every time you shoot a bullet, I assume they will be punished then. So every time you shoot a bullet, you have to show a corresponding number of hands to show that you're not wasting the bullets, that every bullet you use, someone's dead, which you're right, would mean that they need to be killed up front. But then, say you miss, then it's easier for you to go get a hand than admit that, or pay the fine, or whatever the punishment is for missing.
Oof.
So that incentivizes you to go get hands. And then they're like, these are women's hands. You're not shooting men at all. You're just bringing us women's hands to get off the thing. So they're like, right, well, we'll bring you dicks to prove that we have been shooting the men. And they're like, now everything's above board and grand.
But I don't know were they killing the men before they took their dicks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything's fine.
Everything's fine. The men were already dead. But basically, it's heavy.
This is...
Yeah.
Back to the comedy.
Yeah.
Or no, I can see what your eyes, you're like, the next thing's going to be just as heavy.
No. Well, okay, this is a bit of comedy. So, yeah, this is coming out. And now there have been rumors it was going to be bad. Now it's like, there's a lot more dick chopping in this than we had thought. It's going to be very bad. So, obviously, there's a pressure not to release it from Leopold and the Belgian government, and from...
This is like Blackbird.
Yes. Exactly.
It's been years and people are like, I've heard about this. It's going to be pretty bad. We all expect it not to be great. Okay, let's just have a quick, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so all the stuff's coming out. Obviously, there's a bit of backlash to cover up the report from Leopold's government. Well, also from a British ambassador, the British ambassador to Brussels. He tried to get the report stopped, or at least delayed, until after his next meeting with Leopold. They said, the publication will inevitably put me in an awkward position at court. So... That's pretty funny. Come on, you gotta fucking sort me out here, man. I have to meet him in like 10 days, and if this shit comes out beforehand, it's gonna be embarrassing for me.
Yeah, so
I understand. I get it. They had their dicks cut off or whatever. That's gonna be one hell of an embarrassing breakfast for me.
They were
a British man.
So say the quote again.
The publication will inevitably put me in an awkward position at court.
That is an awkward position.
So there's no denying it. Hey, say what you will about the man. That is an awkward position. But, yeah, you couldn't contain the report. Partially because Edie Morel and Casement were already on the loose talking to journalists. I'd heard accounts that Casement was annoyed about this, but I don't know if that's true. I think he was also talking to journalists at the time. So they're saying about what's going to come out. The report does come out, but the names are redacted, which Casement had initially wanted, and then he flip-flopped back and forth on that a bit. So it was this easier, but it reads kind of weird because everyone's just initialized. So it sounds a bit like...
I can't tell you his name, but I can tell you what he does for a living. He's the king of Belgium.
Yeah. And I suppose you could figure stuff out. But because of that, then a lot of the testimony he gets from the Congolese people is kind of lost, because it's just initials. But there was obviously backlash from the report. The British ambassador in Belgium said that the armed guards were just there to protect the harvesters. You know, what if a crocodile got them and chopped off all their harps? The newspaper reports from Congo about the mutilated hands claimed that they were just unfortunates who had hand cancer, and that this was unnecessary surgery that they needed to go.
You know, the classic hand cancer.
Hachi. It was a favor.
Is that what makes people do jazz hands?
I think so. Yeah, it's a cancer of the hands. But Casement also finally got to meet up with Edie Morel, who was also very aware of what was happening in the Congo. So the two of these are kind of like two parts of the same coin. Edie Morel has been figuring out what's going on through paperwork in Europe, and Casement's been seeing what's happening on the ground. So between the two of them, they get like the whole picture. When Morel writes about the first meeting, he spends half the time writing about how handsome and striking Casement is.
Oh,
yeah.
Now this is there's better things to be talking about.
What? Oh yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah, they like this is literally they're getting dogged in the press.
Forgot there for a second. What?
Oh no, they're getting dogged in the press. They're trying to stand by this report, the Casement report, which is damning an entire country for hundreds dead, and they finally meet after being aware of each other for years at this point. And he's so handsome. I believe anything he says.
So Leopold's just so calm about the whole thing. He's like, I'm going to put you on blast, Leopold. I'm going to tell the world. I'm going to tell everyone what you've been doing. He's like, they won't be paying attention to what you're saying.
Coming out of that sweet little mouth.
Do your worst.
Yeah. So, yeah, the two of them meet and they talk long into the night about what's to be done. And at Casement's suggestion, so Casement still works for the British consulate at this point, so his hands are kind of tied a bit. But he suggests, and this is spurred on by Morel's wife.
At least he's still got his hands to get tied with.
There you go. And I was surprised that Morel had a wife after the long, long description of how handsome Casement was. But he suggests, and Morel's wife backs up, that Morel should found the Congo Reform Association. So this is following the playbook from like Britain's stance against slavery, which I guess is more of a, I don't know when that was, the early 1800s. But they're all proud of that. They were like, we stopped transatlantic slavery. So it's kind of, he's trying to like reignite those passions to be like, let's stop what's happening in the Congo. So they push for action to be taken based on Casement's report. And as the campaign ramps up, Morel floats the idea of Casement going back to Congo for more research. And Casement said they'd probably hang him if he went back. But he wrote, "One couldn't do better than be hanged in order to end that den of devils." Which is kind of what you'd said earlier on, and echoes his martyrdom.
Martyrdom.
Bit of foreshadowing for part 2. So the two of them, they're kind of spearheading. And mostly Edie Morel is doing the after work for the Congo reform situation, but Casement's working in the background. They have code names when they converse back and forth. Casement is Tiger, and Morel is Bulldog.
Wait. You can name him after his dog.
Yeah, probably. He loves dogs.
But the specific type of dog that he had.
Because he loves it. Yeah. So, and Leopold is called the King of the Beasts. So that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Bulldog and Tiger versus the King of the Beasts.
But they're both beasts. So now they've named...
that he's the king of them.
Yeah.
But they're rising up in revolution.
That's fair.
To kill the king.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point, though. So, Casements, they're all both pushing for the report to be heard internationally and for action to be taken on it. And it becomes a sort of cause célèbre. So you get supporters like Joseph Conrad from the book, Anatole France, Arthur Conan Doyle. Look at that guy. Booker T. Washington.
5 times.
Ooh.
Booker T is an old wrestler, 5-time world champ.
Okay, all right. And Mark Twain.
This probably wasn't him.
Yeah, we kind of went one for, I thought you might know. So Joseph Conrad, yeah. Conan Doyle, Mark Twain, yeah. The other two, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. Conan Doyle wrote The Crime of the Congo in 1908.
Mark Twain reading the reports and been like, okay, I like this. Oh, you're saying to stop it?
No, he wrote a satirical short story called King Leopold's Soliloquy in 1905, which is apparently quite good. Mm-hmm. So photos were distributed of the mutilations. They're taken against a white backdrop to emphasize like the damage done.
You sure Mark Twain didn't hear the word backlash and he was like, oh, let me see photos of, it's a different type of backlash.
What backlash? Yeah,
he was a big racist, wasn't he?
Twain?
Yeah.
Was he?
Wasn't he? Isn't that to say? Yeah, N-word Jim.
Yeah, but that was of the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of people at the time not using that word.
In what, the 1890s? Probably not. Okay, yeah, right. Critical race theory. Inexcusable racist or man of his time.
That's the first thing that came up.
Yep. Yeah. I don't.
We don't have time.
Don't have time to go into that. Okay, whatever. Oh, right. I didn't know that. But yeah, so
now if everyone else maybe would have understood that, you go back in time now, hear those jokes I made.
Yeah,
give me a laugh.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well done.
Thanks,
well
thanks.
done. Yeah. So yeah, there's photos distributed of the mutilations, and they're taken like the kids are wearing white clothes, so they hold their hands up. Very striking images that they're in all the documentaries. And eventually, in 1905, the movement wins a big victory when, basically under pressure from the rest of the world, King Leopold sets up a commission to look into. This is a classic, like, you know, they set up a commission to look into it internally. They'll take care of it, make sure that everything gets brushed under the rug. But then they accidentally be like, oh yeah, fuck, it's pretty bad down here. So even by their own commission's admission, they're like, yeah, it's not good. And eventually the Congo is taken away from Leopold and taken over by the Belgian government in 1908.
Okay, so how long did he have it for? He went out there in 84,
yeah,
was
probably 40 years.
Okay.
Yeah, never set foot in the place, just ruined the Central Africa. But they won by writing reports.
That's good.
And brought it to the attention, took it over. Now, maybe we'll do a bit of it in the second half. Reading the rest of this book, it's not a happy day for Congo after that, but it is certainly an improvement. So the Parliament of Belgium annexes the Congo Free State and takes over its administration as the Belgian Congo, and the Congo. So ultimately, the Congo Reform Association dissolves itself in 1913. Job's done.
Okay.
Just
fair play.
Great.
Fair play to you, Roger. That is, because I said, it was like, oh, that's good. It was like, that's great.
Yeah.
That's that would be enough for one man's whole life story if he never did anything else with his life.
That'd be a great story. You'd be like, that man's a hero. But it's also the same Roger Casement. He didn't rest on his laurels like you would have. You lazy.
Oh, I'd be down the pub telling lads.
Did you see where Con went? Where did Con go? Let me tell you a story about a different kind of Congo. He'd have a friend called Con. He'd have a room with him.
I got that.
Yeah, just to set it up. So, not resting in his laurels, he heads off in 1906. Our boy. So when Edie Morel is kind of spearheading the Congo Reform movement, he's already back on the road working for the consul. This time he goes out basically into the same situation to investigate the Peruvian Amazon company, PAC, in Santos, Brazil. He's again in some run-down consulate office in the middle of nowhere. He said his predecessor had a net that went from like the ceiling to the floor to stop angry British people throwing stuff at him. Because again, he's just any problem that they have, that he's their point of contact.
Because this net's outside the
no, it's inside. It's in the building.
So people are still coming inside, and still throwing things
and talking to him through a net, and they're like, "Fuck you!"
So it's like the cage.
It's too hot in here as well
for the band in Roadhouse.
Yeah,
seen that? Yeah, people are throwing glass bottles.
I know. You know, I haven't.
What?
Roadhouse?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
I
know.
Swayze.
I know who is in it.
He make you go crazy.
I know what it's about. I just say I haven't seen it.
Well, if there has to be some kind of Irish connection to that.
We'll
watch
figure it
film
out.
club.
We're going to watch Heart of Darkness next anyway. But so he's back at it again. Between Brazil and Peru, he uncovers basically the same level of abuse of the natives. This time it's the Putumayo Indians by the rubber traders over there. It was run by the archetypal rubber baron Julio Cesar Arana, which is, in fairness to him, a pretty good
Very good name.
But a bad man. So they got not roped into it, but there was accounts the pack had abused Barbadians, which is under the protection of the British. So that was their excuse to send him in, let loose, let him do his thing in the Amazon. So in 1911, he takes his first Amazon voyage. After a few months of travel, he goes to the Putumayo district where the rubber is being harvested deep in the Amazon basin. And basically does the same thing again. Interviews
You never
locals.
hear people mention the shallow parts of the Amazon.
No, that's true.
Or any kind of jungle or forest.
That's just the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're always on about zone 1. Everyone wants to live in zone 1.
Yeah.
You just walk for his commute in for 6 hours a day.
To the deep, deep Amazon. It's because most of the rest of it's been cut down, which is, good, I guess. So does the thing again. He's interviewing mercenaries, interviewing locals, Barbadians, writes up another report. When the report gets published, there's public outcry in Britain over the abuse. Whatever about Congo, it's insane that he survived this one, because this time they know what he's doing. They know who he is. He's kind of famous, because they took down, by 1911 they would have disposed a king. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And now they're just like, what, are you heading off into uncharted territories by yourself again to interview mercenaries who work for us about the thing that you just blew a whistle on a few years ago? Yeah, but gosh darn, I hope you don't find anything.
Yeah, but it's so far away. Even if they got a photo of him, which they mightn't have had.
No, just kill him.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have known who it was.
He's the only white man walking around. He's a tall, handsome...
Or if they come by him and they just look at him and go...
Dr. Livingston. I was bamboozled by his curly hair. I forgot to shoot him. But he survives anyway. He blows the whistle on it. And the British, they like all this because it shows that other Belgian colony, it's bad. Out in Brazil, the legacies of the Spanish and the Portuguese colonies, it's bad as well. They're doing bad colonialism, which somehow makes it seem like England's doing good colonialism. So they like that. They can go and send him to give out to the other colonies. It doesn't matter that Leopold was Queen Victoria's first cousin. That's irrelevant. They're doing it wrong, and they like that Casement's blowing the whistle and this sort of stuff. So in June 1911, they give him a knighthood for his work. He becomes Sir Roger Casement. Now, he takes the knighthood because he wants to continue his work working for the British consulate and exposing injustice. He likes the work, and he knows that if he refuses the knighthood, that's the end of that. And if it declined, it might interfere with his work in Peru, especially because that's still going on. But why would he decline the knighthood, you say? It turns out Roger Casement
was secretly baptized by his mother.
No, but he did have a deep secret, something that no one knew about him in his circles. He was, deep down, a big Fenian bastard.
Dum dum dum.
Da, 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 da. He was a big Fenian.
On the Casement.
So he'd start, I think we touched on it early on, where he's reading a bit of Irish mythology or whatever when he went back to Ireland. But when he's in Congo, he really he identifies with the Irish struggle.
No, I'm not going to say we didn't have it tough.
No, I know.
No matter what the English did to us, they weren't cutting off our mickeys.
Cutting off. No, that's true. But I get he says that's what sets him aside from the other white Europeans there, because he's like, this is not, I guess the idea that one race is below another is not the way of things, or in his eyes. So when he's in Congo, he's bemoaning the fact that he's no Irish literature, right? And he doesn't bring out any Irish books. So he doesn't let that happen to him a second time. When he goes out to Brazil, he's got all the history books with him. He writes before he leaves to all his friends, making sure that they address their letters to Consulate of Great Britain and Ireland, not British Consulate, which is exactly the sort of petty republicanism that we love today. So we'll finish up on this. He has a great, not even quote, paragraph, but he said, "It is a mistake for an Irish man to mix himself up with the English. He is bound to do one of two things. Either go to the wall if he remains Irish, or to become an Englishman himself. You see, I very nearly did become one once. At the Boer War time, I had been away from Ireland for years, out of touch with everything native to my heart and mind, trying hard to do my duty, and every fresh act of duty made me appreciably nearer the ideal of the Englishman. I had accepted imperialism. British rule was to be accepted at all cost, because it was the best for everyone under the sun. And those who opposed that extension ought rightly to be smashed. I was on the high road to becoming a regular imperialist jingo, although at heart underneath it all, and unsuspected almost by myself, I had remained an Irishman. Well, the war gave me qualms at the end, the concentration camps bigger ones, and finally, when up in those lonely Congo forests where I found Leopold, I found also myself, the incorrigible Irishman." That's good. Good stuff. A couple of notes there. The Incorrigible Irishman. I missed that. Scorsese movie. Scorsese. That's a little shout out there to the concentration camps that the British had in South Africa during the war. well before World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
great PR from them.
Yeah.
If we just start, because in Germany they weren't calling them concentration camps.
No, I guess not.
No,
but yeah. So he's basically just like, I've really discovered my Irishness.
Mm-hmm.
Just like every man in his 30s, he's like, I actually love my identity now.
I thought it was going to be like any Irish man who spends a little bit of time away from Ireland.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't wear paddy hats here.
He's got his Carlo flag wrapped around him. So that's it. That's the end of part 1. What do you think of Casement now?
Same as what I thought about him the last time you told me this story. It's a pretty cool dude.
It's pretty cool, yeah. So there you go. He's become knighted for exposing atrocities of the rubber trade in Congo. Got Congo taken away from Leopold, basically. Mm-hmm. We'll go into a bit more what happened to Leopold in the second bit. Then he goes out and does the same thing in Brazil.
Helps all the pygmies down there.
Yeah, so he's a hero.
Is that a term we're allowed to use? Is that good?
Yeah, when you said it didn't sound right, but I'm going to.
But anywhere I've read I've read it in a load of places.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I've read it in Huckleberry Finn.
So yeah, he's pretty cool, and it's only he goes on to do a whole load of other cool stuff. That's all coming in part 2.
That we'll talk about in part 2.
So good luck. We'll see you in a few days.
Shafter.
Don't Google him.